Yes, you read that correctly. The Snyderverse is a lot closer than we think. And as of recording this video today on November 17th, marking the 8th year anniversary for the theatrical cut of Justice League, ever since then, it's been a very chaotic fest of the Snyderverse fandom just rolling everyone's shit completely, because ever since that day, things have not been the same. Many Snyderverse fans, including myself, asked for the Snyder Cut of Justice League, and due to our enduring perseverance, nearly 3 years after the theatrical release, we had the big announcement that the Snyder Cut was in fact coming to HBO Max. The fans had won, and the rest was history. But I'm not really here to give you all a history lesson into how the Snyderverse came to be, or the Snyder Cut, I should say. What I want to briefly mention in this video, because I don't want to take too long and just, ramble on something you've already heard before, is where we are today with the Snyderverse fandom. What's happened ever since the release of the Snyder Cut, and will the Snyderverse, in fact, be restored? We're going to cover that in today's video, but before I do all that, go ahead, do your due diligence, and like and subscribe to the channel, because you are not going to miss out on this certified banger content. And with all that being said, let's get right into the video. Now, like I mentioned earlier with, the Snyder Cut being released and it kind of changing things forever, honestly, it honestly opened up a Pandora's box, honestly, because ever since that day, there's been nothing but interest for the Snyderverse. And I know a lot of haters out there, a lot of the Gunverse fans will like to deny that and act like their shit is popping off and like, the Superman movie was gas and the DCU is here to stay. Well, ever since that day, many of, not only just Snyderverse fans, but the haters especially, or the detractors, they love to mention anything about the Snyderverse, whether they hate it or whether they thought it was like mediocre in their opinion, or maybe not so much opinion. They're just, reiterating what they've heard from others because they have no original thought. The point being is that the Snyderverse is on everyone's mind, and it has been on everyone's mind ever since the release of the Snyder Cut, and even before the release of the Snyder Cut. But ever since the movie's release, many of us thought that, DC was actually going to be on track, and it was actually going to, start kicking Marvel's ass, or actually be in competition with Marvel once again, like in the early days. And honestly, like, that's what we really needed back then, and it's what we need now. We need that just, old school competition between the movie studios and just pumping out just straight up bangers, especially from Zack Snyder, anyone related to Zack Snyder with his Snyderverse films. And unfortunately, ever since the release of the Snyder Cut, Warner Brothers Discovery completely pivoted from Snyderverse altogether and started to go their own route or their own path. They kept releasing, the DCEU movies to not to be confused with like actual Snyderverse, that being Man of Steel through Zack Snyder's Justice League. It was mainly, movies like Shazam, Birds of Prey, all those, complete dipshit movies that were in line with like MCU movies, but just not even as good as MCU movies. It was just complete mediocre slop fest. And with maybe a few exceptions here and there, I kind of like Black Adam. It was kind of a guilty pleasure for me. But even then, it was not hitting like Zack Snyder's films, or even, maybe someone like David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie, even though I have major issues with the theatrical cut. And not to get too convoluted with my overall topic and like, David Ayer's cut of Suicide Squad, because I know that's a whole separate topic in itself. But with, the Snyderverse being restored or potentially being restored could honestly, bring something like that back to light. And maybe we can finally see David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie, because a lot of us do want to see that, or just see how it would have played out if we had gotten his initial vision. But not to get too lost in the sauce with that. The point being is that we should have had Snyderverse a long time ago. It should not have taken as long as it did to finally get all these pieces restored, get past this MCU copy paste fest, whatever the fuck it is, with Gunn's universe, because ever since the release of the Snyder Cut, things kind of took a downward spiral, and we now get stuck with Gunn's DCU. Ever since he was announced as the co-CEO of DC Studios back in 2023 or late 2023, things have been going to shit. And a lot of people will like to deny that and say, Gunn's films are gas, his Marvel movies were gas, and, the DCU would have been no different. It would have been straight up bangers after bangers. And guess what? That really wasn't the case. A lot of y'all barely showed up to, the Superman movie this year. and y'all's whole universe is just in complete shambles. You know, you start off with Creature Commandos. That didn't do too well ratings-wise, and no one really cared anything about Creature Commandos. Nobody even knew what the fuck that was. And to start your universe off with an animated show that barely anyone knows about, or even like a team, ensemble team, because you know that's all Gunn knows how to write, with something as shitty as Creature Commandos, yeah, your shit was doomed to fail from the start, and it makes you wonder, why didn't we just restore the Snyderverse earlier? You could have had your little shitty universe, you know, a lot later if you had just, you know, let Zack Snyder restore his vision or play out his vision the way he intended and let the fans see what they want to see. But that's not what we have today. Instead, we're having to, you know, kind of sit back on the sidelines and just like wait for this, you know, new leadership takeover with this Warner Brothers Discovery buyout from all these different studios like Paramount, Netflix, and even, you know, Saudi Arabia. Now, apparently they're in the cards to purchase Warner Brothers Discovery. And, you know, we're kind of on the fence of like where this is going to go. If the Snyderverse does get restored, who is, you know, more likely to restore it? Is it going to be Saudi Arabia due to Zack Snyder's, you know, great relationship with the Saudis? Is it going to be Paramount? Is it going to be Netflix due to, you know, Snyder's good relationship with Netflix? We don't know yet, and there's a lot of, you know, all kinds of rigmarole with that, and, you know, especially government entities that have to approve all these, like, different mergers and all that stuff. It's a whole process. It's a very complicated one, and there's going to be a lot to this going forward, but it's going to be a very interesting time for sure, because now you have to ask yourself, if whoever buys out Warner Brothers Discovery, and maybe there's a shakeup in the hierarchy of Warner Brothers, what's going to happen with the DC brand? Is James Gunn going to stay and do his shit, or is somebody else going to take over for James Gunn and, like, you know, still continue on with the DCU? Or are we actually going to get the Snyderverse restored? It's definitely very interesting because I think, you know, with all these talks about who's going to purchase it, a lot of people right now, especially the Gunverse fans, are in shambles right now. They're kind of scared of any of these entities purchasing Warner Brothers Discovery because they kind of realize that there's that potential that the DCU could just be, you know, just canceled altogether. They could just rip that shit right off the, you know, release dates. And granted, that may not happen. It will be very likely that won't happen because they're probably going to, you know, release Supergirl and Clayface. Unless they do they give it the Batgirl treatment where they write both of those movies off as tax write-offs or tax exemptions, whatever the fuck you would call that. And, you know, I don't know. I'm not the expert in that, but it seems to me that they're probably going to, you know, let the Lantern show, you know, play out, let that release next year, and then go from Supergirl to Clayface, or vice versa, whichever one's getting released first. It's going to be interesting going forward because we've seen a lot more news recently about Man of Tomorrow and how they're trying to rush that into production, because Man of Tomorrow was not in James Gunn's initial DCU release slate, or, you know, with anything that was mentioned with his Gods and Monsters slate, which has been completely abandoned at this point. And speaking of Man of Tomorrow, I saw recently today, as of November 17th, you know, many people campaigning for Restore the Snyderverse. There's now rumors of all the characters that are going to be included in Man of Tomorrow. And in typical Warner Brothers fashion, or, you know, with the current hierarchy of Warner Brothers, they like to sabotage anything with, like, you know, if Zack Snyder announces something really big or he shows off, you know, newer pictures of, like, his past films, Warner Brothers likes to interject themselves and try to overshadow anything that Zack Snyder posts on his Instagram. And, you know, maybe spread a rumor that, like, oh, X character is going to be in the upcoming Man of Tomorrow movie or Supergirl movie, whatever the case may be. And the most recent rumor I've seen is that they're going to introduce Wonder Woman in Man of Tomorrow. So basically, all these, like, character inclusions in Man of Tomorrow, we're just going to get Batman vs. Superman 2.0, but without Batman. Unless James Gunn changes his mind, because he's known for doing that. And speaking of Gunn, you know, I know I keep going on from topic to topic, but this is very relevant. I haven't really heard much from Gunn recently, and he hasn't really spoken on Twitter that much or, like, responded to a lot of fan questions or concerns. It's very rare when he does that. And the most recent thing I've seen him respond to was Dr. Fate rumors that, you know, Dr. Fate, played by Pierce Brosnan, was going to return as Dr. Fate for Man of Tomorrow. And James Gunn, you know, flat out said, I haven't heard any of those rumors. Granted, he's not flat out saying that he is or he isn't going to be in the movie, but that was something he responded to. But other than that, we haven't heard much from James Gunn. He's been kind of quiet recently. And I'm really curious as to what that's about. Does Gunn, has he gotten word that he's probably on his way out of his position as the co-CEO of DC Studios? Has he gotten word of like a hierarchy change? Like, what's going on with that? It's like we just don't know at this point. There's, we could speculate here and, say that Gunn's probably realizes that his time is over with DC Studios. His shit's not popping off like he hoped it would. And especially for Warner Brothers, because they were really banking on this guy to really carry the DC brand going forward. And unfortunately, he did not really deliver. And I know you'll see a lot of articles saying that, Superman was a success at the box office. There was a recent article that came out and said that it made a lot of its money back through merchandise and all that bullshit. But you can only believe so much of that, or like whoever's reporting that. Because we saw that Forbes, initially reported that it flopped theatrically at the box office. It didn't do so well internationally. It did okay domestically, but internationally, that was absolute shit. But now they came out again recently saying that it made its money back in merchandising. And if you look at the article, the math isn't quite mathing, and it's been kind of bonkers ever since. But what isn't bonkers is, I'm going to kind of move on from James Gunn and all that bullshit. The whole point of this video is to show you guys that the interest in the Snyderverse is still here. It's been here since the release of the Snyder Cut, and even before the release of the Snyder Cut. Many people are still wanting to see the conclusion of, Superman's story and, the culmination of the anti-life equation brought to you by Darkseid, and just the culmination of the Justice League saga just concluded in a way that's satisfying, in a way that, fans can, be satisfied with what they have, and just, we can move on. Actually, we can move on once these movies get released, because we were promised these movies many years ago, and we're still asking for these movies today, because we're interested. There's actual interest in the Snyderverse alone, and there's been interest even from not only just supporters but even haters alike. And I know a lot of them will not want to admit that, but they are interested in this. And you'll see people like Soups, that Blu-ray Angel Doofus, and then that one weirdo Axel who loves to shield for Gunn. That guy at one point was a Snyderverse supporter. He was really happy when the Snyder Cut was announced. And of course, he changes tune because he's just trying to keep up with the times, or what he thinks is the times. But not to get too lost in that. The point being is that everyone is actually interested in the Snyderverse one way or another. And even in merchandise sales, a lot of people still buy a lot of Snyderverse figurines, especially for like the McFarlane brand and many other toy brands. People are still interested in this, and it does actually sell. And it makes up a good, profit margin for Warner Brothers in terms of their merchandising, because they still sell Snyderverse shit. They still do, whether they want to neglect what Zack Snyder did with his DC movies or not. They still sell those figurines, and many people have shown interest with Zack Snyder's movies or future movies, potential for future movies, especially on Instagram when he keeps posting those behind the scenes photos of, like, let's say Batman or Joker, or even maybe a new Superman pick. People are completely interested. There's a lot of viewership for that kind of stuff. And even when I made my last video, pertaining to the Snyderverse and compared to the Gunverse, a lot of people showed up for that video, and it was probably one of my more successful videos of this year. So if that doesn't go to show you anything, I don't know what does or what will. But yeah, that's pretty much what I want to get off my chest for today on November 17th. I thought I'd just make this rather quick video on my overall thoughts of the Snyderverse and where we are today, and just the fact that people are still interested in the big 25. It's kind of endearing in its own right. But now I'm going to kick it off to you guys. Are you guys still interested in the Snyderverse? Are you not? Are you more interested in what Gunn is doing with his DCU? I want to hear it from you guys in the comments below. And with all that being said, if you liked today's video, go ahead, drop a like, and subscribe to the channel if you want more certified banger content just like this one. But before I conclude this video, I just thought I'd end off by saying, thank you guys for your support with my recent videos, especially my last Snyderverse video I made. That did a lot of numbers, and I'm very appreciative of you guys for that. But something I wanted to let you guys know in advance with the rest of this year is that the uploads are going to be kind of slow because of my schedule. I have a bit of a change up with my schedule. But hopefully I can get you guys more uploads on the weekends, especially in December when a lot of shit pops off or more announcements are made, or, trailer reactions and whatnot. I'm going to be sure to try to cover that for you guys. But if the uploads are slow this year or the rest of the year, I apologize in advance. But with all that being said, I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys want to see for the rest of this year? Do you want to see more movie reviews, trailer reactions, or maybe something Christmas related? I love doing the Christmas related stuff. That's always fun. And it doesn't always do numbers, but when it does, it fucking hits completely, because I really love Christmas. But I definitely want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. I really try to look at everyone's feedback and try to get with everyone as much as I can with responding to you guys, because I really do appreciate the comments and the feedback. I really do. But with all that being said, folks, I really appreciate you guys checking out today's video and taking some time out of your day to check out this channel. It really does mean a lot, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I've almost met my threshold for getting this video, or not this video, this channel monetized completely. And I can't say that every video is going to get monetized, because I know there's some copyright shit and all that stuff, but we are very close to getting to 1,000 subscribers. So my goal for the rest of this year, even if the uploads are slow, I want to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers, because it's been a long journey getting there, but it's been a fun journey, and I really appreciate you guys for checking out my content and making it worth your time, or especially me trying to make it worth your time. I try to do the best I can with each of these videos, covering stuff that you guys are actually interested in. It means the world to me. It really does. So with all that being said, all I just need to say is thank you guys, and I hope you guys stick around for more videos to come. So with all that being said, if you really like today's video, like I said before, like the video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. And that's going to do it for today's video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.